Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Superman and Lois. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So obviously, we see everything trickle out to the point that Allie is able to escape. So it seems like there's someone that's a part of the military that works for her. Like, I guess she's got connections to people in probably different facets. You know, she's probably was able to pull people into this whole inverse thing from different ranks and stuff. So I was wondering, I was like, there's no way they're going to just let Lucy walk through. Lucy just had to pass on Sam's card to someone, ID/card to someone else to do it. And ultimately, Allie makes it in, and it's up to Clark to try and stop her. And I love that lady's like, oh, you can't even, not even you could get through it without a specialized suit. So I guess my understanding of what Clark did is, is like by speeding up so much, he's creating this, he's basically creating a windshield around himself. Because by moving so much, he's creating this large wave of wind resistance on himself that's acting as like a buffer between him and the portal. So he's able to even though he's punching through, it's still ripping through his suit. So that was interesting. And then Clark is gone for over a month. I was like, interesting. That's really fascinating. I thought that was an interesting development. And obviously it's like, right, what does the world look like when there is no Superman? Once again, it's that thing of they're not acknowledging that Supergirl exists in this continuity in any shape or form. So that's why I'm still like, is this on a different Earth, even though it seems like it's the same continuity? Is it an Earth that's so close to Earth 1 Prime? But I'm like, because that's the only thing, because I'm like, there's these world disasters and stuff, and well, because you saw Supergirl act on a larger scale from time to time. Like, she didn't always just stick around National City, but mainly, I feel like more often than not, she would. So, but just ignoring that aspect of it, because I can't shut that part of my brain off thinking about that. But it is interesting to know, wow, the world, it's like, yeah, Superman isn't here. What is the world going to do? It's like, this is another disaster. And obviously, that's the world scale. Obviously, on the personal scale, Lois, John, and Jordan are all freaking out because it's like, man, this is the longest Clark. I mean, and obviously they've only known about their dad being Superman, past couple months, maybe a year or so at this point in time. Who knows how much time has passed in totality from season 1 to where we are right now. But for Lois, it's interesting to know, he's never been away this long before. So that is nerve-wracking for her. And she's got to handle that. Raising the kids, especially with everything that's going on with Jonathan, going on with Jordan. It's a lot, and it weighs. It's a lot of weight to kind of have to their family was already kind of going through issues even before Clark left, just because of everything that was going on. Now on top of that, it's like you're having to kind of handle a lot of that weight by yourself when you're used to cohabitating, when you have someone else to shoulder that with. It's but that suddenly have that kind of all thrust upon you, that it's a rough situation for Lois. Obviously Jordan's continuing his training. You have John Henry Irons stepping up and kind of filling the void of the Superman. I love this. A new Man of Steel, which I did not know this. I think I heard people talk about this recently. I don't remember who. I wish I could. But a little insight into John Henry that I didn't know. I don't know if this is just one specific continuity or whether it's always been his story, but he fills in when Superman's gone. Now, I don't remember if it was because of the Doomsday thing. I don't remember if it's because at that time Superman was dead because of Doomsday or just dealing with something else at the time. What the case may be, he stepped up and kind of became Superman for the world, and that's kind of what they're doing a little bit with this storyline. It's actually interesting because they kind of split it a little between John and Jordan, of both of them kind of stepping up and filling the void of Clark not being around. And I thought that was such a fascinating thing. Obviously the apt comparison, I'm sure John Henry Irons has been in the comics for a while. I actually don't know how long he's been in the comics, but I'm sure that predates, at least, I would assume that predates Miles Morales. But that's the example I immediately think of, just because I became familiar with that example before I became familiar with this. But Miles filled the void of there being no Spider-Man. So it was kind of a similar thing too. Because apparently also, like, obviously when you look at John Henry Irons from the comics, obviously it's a very different circumstance, but obviously he also paints the Superman logo, obviously the House of L sigil on his chest. It's kind of like, to show like, oh, I am Superman. I'll step in and fill that void for a while. So, but there's only so much John can do, because yes, he has a high-tech suit, but I think doesn't fill that void of having like straight up Kryptonian abilities like Jordan does. So when a fire does happen, but it was a fire I was like, that fire looks weird. I was like, is someone controlling that? But it turns out, we later on find out that place is a place that they were like manufacturing the X-Kryptonite. So I guess it getting mixed into all that, the chemical composition of it kind of created that fire and made it like act weird. So luckily Jordan got there in time to get Kyle out of there before he got seriously hurt. But to the point he was even excited. He's like, yeah, I flew for a little bit, which I find funny and interesting. Not funny, but really interesting. Just because even you compare it to Smallville, it was a long time before, like, Clark technically flew in season 4, but he technically doesn't. Well, was it the end of season 3 or was it the beginning of season 4 he ended up flying? I think it was a combination of the two, but it's not until like the end of the series that he flew, because it's like, once again, it's not about him being Superman yet. It's about his journey to being super. So that's the whole point. So it's just interesting to know like Jordan's getting there at a much younger age than Clark did, at least in Smallville. I don't know if it's clear, like, because it seemed like he might not have flew even in this series at a very younger age, because he was still training at the Fortress of Solitude, like running, and he was like definitely his older self. So I don't know if but I don't know if that could just be like, okay, I can't remember. No, he did fly, didn't he? But he still might not have learned until like an older age. So Jordan might be on the level of like, right, I have the potential of succeeding my father. I have even greater potential than he does. So maybe that's an element of that. But either way, and I think this episode does a really nice job of showing Jordan the complications of stepping up to be a hero, especially when the people in your life don't really know. I mean, for one, his mom had to find out from John Henry that that's what he was up to. So that complicated things, especially when Jonathan was like, yo, you should tell mom, trust me, you don't want her to find out from someone else. But he's like, yeah, but what if she gets mad at me for, and she's super mad. It's like, right, you're still a kid. You stop acting like you got, because for her, it's like, both my kids are walking around like you guys are full grown adults. You're not. Because even Jonathan is upset too, because for him, it's, their mom is already pissed at him, and he's like, Dad's not here right now, and I might not ever have a chance to apologize to him, because he legitimately feels like, he's like, Mom even said it, like, she's never seen Dad that mad before. It's like, he's so upset with me, and it's just because he's so disappointed in his sons, because I think it's like, he holds it on a standard of like, I would have never got mixed up in something like that, and for the fact is that I try to raise you, because that's also the thing of, I raised you right, and for you to do that makes me scared of like, he's overreacting to some extent, because as a parent, I'm speaking, like I'm a parent or something, I'm not, but I think it's, as a parent, you're scared of like, right, it's a slippery slope. Like, if you're mixed up in this, like, and you're lying about it, and you're covering up all of this, like, who's to say it couldn't get worse, that you could get mixed up in something terrible? So that's why Clark is worried, Probably even more so because it's like, right, you're my son who has no powers, and something terrible could happen to you, and what if I don't get there in time? And I think it's just a fear of failing your family. It's what drives that. Once again, I still believe maybe has something to do with the fact is that Bizarro is dead. It's like, right, these are mirror versions of yourself, and your mirror version is dead. And so I still wonder if that did something to Clark that we haven't really covered yet. But, that was just kind of my thought. But there's nothing that indicates that is the case. But we'll see if they end up diving into that or in any shape or form or not. But regardless. So obviously he had to prove himself, not only just to himself, but also to his mom that like, no, I'm ready, I can do this. And she's like, as long as you're under my roof, you're going to do what I tell you to. He's like, yeah, but I'm the one with the powers. And it's like, don't talk back to your mom like that, especially because it's like, it's not fair, like considering all that your mom's going through. But for him, it's like, yeah, I can step up. I have to help because I have the power. Like, you guys raised me to try and do the right thing, and that's what I'm trying to do. I've got to do the right thing because if the world doesn't have Superman right now, I'm the next best thing. Like, I might not be able to completely fill that void, but I can help at least to some extent. Like, if I didn't step in, Kyle might be dead because John Henry Irons wouldn't have gotten there in time. So that is that complicated rub of it. But like I also said, it is a complication of you're also dealing with the other aspects of being Superman, trying to balance both sides of your life, and he's being all superhero, and that leaves Sarah feeling like, wow, like I must not be the number one important thing in your life because you can't tell me, you won't tell me. And sad because he wanted to tell her before, but it is this thing of like, right, like, because when Clark told Lois, he made sure that he was like, I know she was the right one, and Jordan felt like that before, but it is the circumstances of, right, the more people who know, the complications that come with it, because that puts those people in danger knowing your secret. And he feels like he can't tell her, especially now with everything going on, and they end up breaking up because of it. And it's like, that's the rough end of it, especially because she doesn't know the truth, you know. Because for her, it just feels like you're constantly ditching her. For like the past month, she couldn't really get in contact with you. Everything going on with the election, she wanted to share this time with you, and you weren't there for her, especially with everything that she's going through right now. The fact is, she's trying to help out her mom with the election. Her dad's hurt, but she also finds out he lives in a crappy apartment. There's not a lot of stuff there because because the moment he brings stuff there, it's going to feel like this is permanent. Like he's still holding out hope that Lana will take him back, that this is only temporary, that everything will work out. I think she tried to lay down the ground rules. I tried to make that clear when he was like, yeah, like I'm not living at the firehouse. I got my own place. You know, and she's like, no, that's good. She kind of cut him off, but it's like, yeah, that's good. I thought, my thought was, oh, he's trying to, I guess because he's like, right, he probably feels embarrassed living at the firehouse, considering everything, especially because the entire town knows now. So I think that plays a role in why he decided to get a place, just so he wouldn't be around his coworkers and everything, like kind of their pity and judgment a little bit. Maybe that's where he was worried about. But, because I thought, like, okay, he wanted a more permanent place so that Sarah could come over. And it's like, no, because this was supposed to be a temporary situation. But Sarah had to be like, Dad, stop deluding yourself into believing that. Like, because talking to her mom, it's like, hey, can Dad stay with us a while? And she's like, no, it would go against what we've got to already set up. And I don't want to give your dad the wrong impression. Because if I let him stay, even if he's injured or whatever, it's going to give him the wrong impression that, oh, things will be worked out. We'll, you know. But Sarah does bring up, like, right, he is hurt and his place is sad, but she's like, right, your dad created this circumstance for himself. He was the one that made his choices, and now he has to live with the consequences of it. So Sarah's dealing with all of that. She ends up breaking up with Jordan and she ends up, you know, spending time with her dad. Like, she doesn't want to feel what she's feeling right now, and he's like, right, we'll just kind of spend time together, and then the next day we both figure out what it's like to go forward. Obviously you breaking up, and obviously him having to finally accept, like, right, things between me and Lana might be kaput. Like, there is no holding out hope for things to be different, because Lana probably isn't going to, like, they can find their way forward. It's co-parenting, but together, you know, because it did seem like there was kind of like a John Henry and Lana situation going on when they're kind of talking and laughing together, and it did not sit well with Natalie. And I was curious, like, how she was going to take it. Obviously, losing her mom is still a fresh enough wound, and so because she tried cooking waffles, and he didn't realize that, like, this is the anniversary of their mom's death. Of her mom's death, and it's like, right, he's so caught up in living this life that he didn't even notice. And even he admits later on, he's been so caught up in covering for Clark as Superman and just living this life that they have, that he kind of didn't notice. And that's what upsets Natalie the most when he tries to apologize. He's like, right, I'm trying to move forward with my life. And she's like, you're trying to forget, Mom? It's like, no, but the fact is, I can't spend the rest of my life dwelling on that. Like, we have a life here. And it's like, yeah, but what kind of father? I would never want to have a father who's willing to just forget Mom. And I think that's a complicated thing, because it's like, right, and I think that kind of plays in a little bit of the last episode thing of like, right, she's like, at the very least, me and Dad, we have each other. That's all I need in the world. And now it's like, wait, you're just forgetting about Mom. You're enjoying this life. Like, a life without Mom. We're the only people on this planet who knows Mom, because I can't show anyone a picture of my deceased mom, because they're like, oh, wait, why are there pictures of you and Lois Lane? And it's like, wait, that's your, what? That's a whole thing. So how can, because Sarah was like, right, I want to help you. We could do this little thing that kind of like, you know, like Sarah wanted to be a friend, but it's like, oh, I just need a picture of your mom. And it's like, oh, I'm not sure. Just give me, it doesn't have to be a good picture. Just give me your phone. She's like, I'm sorry. It's like, that's sad that you can't like rely on anyone for that. The only people who could help her will be Jonathan and Jordan, because they're the only ones that know the truth, and it'd be a little bit easier to be like, right. I think maybe Jonathan will play a role in that, because him and Natalie definitely hit it off. I'm not saying like Jordan's like doesn't have like any like dynamic or relationship with him, but they definitely built up, even since last season. He's the one that kind of latched onto the whole thing. Like, right, I had a sister from a parallel universe that I never knew. So he found the kinship in that. I feel like we haven't really spent enough time with Jordan and her to really see if that dynamic is there. But we've definitely seen a little bit more time between Jonathan and Natalie, so I just thought that was interesting. But I feel like if anyone could help her, if that circumstance came up again, I think it would be Jonathan. But reflecting on what Natalie said, you know, it made John want to look back, because it is that thing of, I can understand where he's coming from, but it is also insensitive of him to be like, right, I did forget about it. And I can, like, saying what he said at a time where you can tell how important this is to your daughter, that it's like, it's always that complicated thing of like, when do you move on? I'm sure Sarah's going to be dealing with that soon enough of like, yeah, when is my mom going to move on? What about my dad? Like, those conversations are going to be coming up a little sooner. It's different circumstances though, because it's like, right, your parents are both alive and they're just splitting up. My mom's dead, and you know, and being around this Earth's Lois, I'm sure just makes that sting a little bit more too. Because I think that's even more so reason why he wants to like live his life and not be so adherent to like holding on to Lois. Because it's like, right, me holding on, like probably last episode probably cemented that even more when he was like, oh, my two girls. It's like, Dad, Mom's dead. And he's like, right, I was just confused for a little bit. I think that combined with all of this is probably what made him go like, I need to like find a way to move forward, especially if I'm going to be around Lois in any shape or form, because I don't want to be in that state where I'm reminded. And he even admits like filling in for Superman, he's like, it's no excuse to have forgotten, but it also gave him an outlet where he didn't have to think like, oh, it gave me something else to think about, you know? And he's like, but at the end of the day, he talks to Natalie and he's like, you're right. It's not right for me to do that. So I'm not trying to forget your mom. I'd never forget your mom. And from now on, rather than like focusing on when she died, like, how about we celebrate her life? Because he has like plenty of home videos. It's like, right, let's take this time to reflect on the good, you know, remember the life. Like, you know, death, you know, a lot of people have that perspective of let's treat death like a celebration of like, not when the person, them dying, but the life that they lived, who they were. So at least at the very end, it seems like things are better between them because of it. So obviously, another chunk of this episode was the whole, okay, things are getting bad because this is all dealing with the XK, and that explosion could have been really, really bad. It really was, but like there could be a lot of people hurt. So they go to Jonathan and it's like, right, tell us who gave you the XK. I'll give them immunity. We'll keep their name out of this. And Jonathan brings Candace over, which you can tell rubs Lois the wrong way. It's like, oh, so my son's girlfriend is the bad influence. But you can tell there's also this, I think, alleviation to some extent, knowing like, oh, like I think some understanding of why your son did what he did. It's like, right, You're protecting your girlfriend. You're protecting someone you care about, especially when Lois hears her circumstances. It's like, right, my dad doesn't have a lot of money. We've been moving around a lot, sure, but it's like, you know, at least you guys have a nice farmhouse to move into. Like, we've moved around so many times over the past year alone or something like that, and it's been tough, and I'm trying to make money, and I was desperate. I am sorry. And it is the thing of I think if Jonathan had given them the opportunity, if he had let Clark and Lois know, they would have been a lot more helpful. But they could have found a different solution for trying to potentially help out Candace, but he never gave them the opportunity. And I think that's an important conversation they could have going forward. But I think it is also the thing of, I'm curious how Clark and Lois are going to feel about it, because I think Lois is going to lighten up because of these circumstances, and I think Clark might go, no, he still lied to us, no matter what his circumstances were. Like, maybe this will change Clark's view on things, or maybe Lois will have to, like, talk to him to kind of change his view on it, being like, right, we taught our son to be a good kid, and yes, he took the X-Kryptonite, and that's a bad thing, but he's tried to shoulder and help someone that was in a very desperate situation. We raised our son to try and be good. Both of our sons are trying to help and do the right thing in their own ways. We might not 100% agree with everything that they're doing, but, you know, and what they did to get to that route. I mean, especially because Jonathan has gotten screwed over to the point he was at that little helping out Lana, and one of the people there is like, oh, how could you? How dare you? And you're like, what? It's like, oh, they're pissed about the football game, and it's not just her, the coaches too, because she's like, right, my son's a senior, this was his last chance to play football, and you screw that up for him. And like Jonathan's just like, yeah, I'll just work somewhere else, and it sucks because he's facing the brunt of that. He's a little bit like, because it is a small town, and I'm sure like everyone rallies behind the football. Like, it is probably like Smallville's pastime, the thing that they all rally behind. And so to have that kind of screwed up, and it's like, oh, like you're responsible for this. Like, how many other children have you got involved? Conversations like that, it all falls on I keep doing that, Jonathan, even though he's not directly responsible. So that's kind of sucky in the long run. But obviously Candace is apologetic. She's like, I'm sorry. It's like, wow, your mom can be scary. He's like, yeah, I know. But now when it's all resolved, it's like, right, we can focus on us. But then he starts getting a headache, and at first I was like, oh, your power's coming in? We'll get to that in a second. Well, since we're already here, I'm going to talk about it. But the reason why is because Jonathan from the other world, the inverse world, the Bizarro world, ended up popping up here, and that's why. That's interesting. So, because this is only our second mirror Bizarro person to come over into this world, so we never really know. So I was wondering if that was just going to be a Clark thing, but it's like anyone's doppelganger that makes it over to this world is going to have that. So that's what that was supposed to be an early sign of. I was like, that's interesting. At first I was like, oh, is he developing powers or something? It's like, oh no. Makes you wonder, does his doppelganger have powers? Maybe not. It'd be interesting to find out. I was kind of under the impression that maybe, because like, once again, I'm blanking on the picture of like, because I think Lois's face was crossed out, and I want to say Jonathan's was as well. So either that's just because they moved on from him, and maybe Jordan's the only one he had in his life. Because I feel like that's what that picture was at, or maybe it was actually Lois and Jordan. I don't remember now. Look, correct me in the comments down below whose faces were kind of had X's on them in that in the Kent family photo in the inverse world. But I hadn't talked about it. But luckily, they went investigated the main place where all the XK is kind of being dealt out of, and Lois and Sam get captured. And I love that line from Lois, like, right, you're just going to give yourself like rope burn. Like, if it was this type of rope, you'd be able to easily get out. And Sam's like, how many times have you been tied up? She's like, it's probably best you don't know. I'm like, that is interesting that she probably would be an expert on those type of ropes, because she's probably, not, as just Lois Lane, the reporter, getting mixed up in some, like, investigating something dangerous. She's probably been in that situation one too many times over the years. So it's like, yeah, she's probably been tied up by some pretty bad people from time to time. Whether it just be like some people she's investigating, just some, whether it's just some low-level criminals, or whether it's like some supervillain status person or something. But it's just like, yeah, that is kind of interesting. I think that's kind of an interesting little lore tidbit to this world. Just being like, yeah, she's probably been through this so many times before. So, but luckily Jordan showed up, and I love the whole, once again, just like, because they did that last season with Clark when he was fighting in that hotel room where he froze a guy and like uppercutted him. And we get it with Jordan when he freezes a guy and then uppercuts him. And then when the guy shoots his heat vision at him, Jordan like kind of defends himself because he's got I don't think he's nearly as invulnerable as Clark is. And despite that, it's heat vision, so that's a whole other story too. Like, heat vision can still pack a punch. So, but for Jordan, it was almost like he entered flash time, because I think he's able to move fast, but in that moment, it kind of subconsciously, he like activated his speed, and he noted, and he just moves out of the way, and the heat vision, and it's just slow motion, and he kind of looks and smiles, and easily takes the guy down. And it's like, yeah, having seeing that moment come more and more of like him stepping up as a hero. He had this, and even his mom's proud of him at the end. It's like, yeah, you saved your mom. He's like, I guess. She's like, you saving me should be more than just I guess. It's like, but she's like, regardless of everything, I am super proud of you. Because she's like, the reason why I've been so freaked out is like, it just feels like yesterday you guys were running around in diapers, and now it's like, I do have to accept the fact you guys are growing up, but it's still like, at the end of the day, it's like, I'm still your mom. So, but just with everything going on, and it's like, right, I'm sure your dad is very proud of you too. So, but like I said, at the end, Jonathan shows up, inverse Jonathan, and I thought it was interesting. He started talking backwards, and he kind of had to shake his head, be like, right, which I'm like, oh, so that's interesting. Does that mean Bizarro could have? I wonder why is that he could have talked like, I guess, reversed to them, what would be reversed to the inverses, but in a way that they could have understood, but I guess maybe he chose not to, because Laura had to like make it so that his language was translated, because it's backwards and kind of playing it forwards, and I'm like, the fact is Jonathan could just naturally do that made me go like, huh, can everyone from that world do that? Well, it's interesting. I didn't even think about it last episode. I'm such an idiot. Allie from the other world spoke, and she was... No. She spoke backwards. I forgot. No, because she was talking to him normally, wasn't she? And then she... So I guess, like, maybe a lot of people can flip back and forth. Maybe he just never bothered. Inverse Superman, Bizarro. I don't know. I'm so curious... That was just such an interesting little detail. Like, I'm like, can most of the people from that world do that? Just on the dime. It just probably takes a whole, like, right, I gotta speak forward just to get you to understand me. So, but it's like, yeah. The reason why Clark isn't here is because he tried, but it seems like he failed to stop Allie. So, this entire episode is like, right, this is what this world's going through without Superman. I'm assuming the entire next episode is going to be all that Clark's been up to in the inverse world, what kept him away for over a month. Does time work a little differently there? Was he captured in all that time frame? What exactly went down? What happened? Allie believing herself to be like, oh, I'm going to heal everyone, I'm going to save everyone. I'm assuming a lot of that time is also going to deal with Anderson, who probably went and found his other half as well, who... I mean, maybe it's not Allie that won out in the end. Maybe it was actually Anderson, and now Clark has to deal with Anderson, who's full-blown God mode. Maybe, maybe not. We'll ultimately have to wait and see where the next episode takes us going forward with all this. Also answering how Jonathan got here. We know how Bizarro got here, so not less the portal, you can open the portal easily from either side. I don't know. I'm interested to see where all that takes us. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.